we're going down the river, and I think the idea is that we create waterfalls on the river, going down the river. Not exactly sure. So it's a quite big project in the sense we might end up having 5 or 10 waterfalls going down the Hudson River. You know, if we could, it would be nice to make some kind of journey with a boat that you could go up against the stream and encounter all these waterfalls. But now we're just looking for the sights. Look at this.
Everywhere we go, people want to know.
So American, huh? What is it that makes a space productive? What is it that makes a space, challenging and exciting and embracing and including and hospitable and tolerant and so on? What is that? Here is the color white. What you have in front of you is just like a flat screen, and there's a certain amount of light coming out of it, and it works like a lamp. When does the lamp in front of you become spatial? When is it not a surface anymore, and when is it, let's say, when does it have a depth? The moment I would put my body into it, like this, you instantly start to constitute a certain, let's say, dimensionality. You can tell roughly how wide and high it is, and my body tells you something about the nature of this space. The time it takes for me to go from where I am now up closer to you gives you a certain feeling like this of what does it mean actually to look at a space. I'm not saying that I produce the space for you. I'm saying that the way you just had the time to look at me is what constituted the space. I have been wanting to do something in New York for many years. I've been wanting to do something also in a scale that would match the kind of the talk of this spatial city, or something that would match New York in a way, not in the spectacular sense, but simply like in terms of the quality of the scale of the city and the scale of Manhattan and the whole idea of what that is. And only the last 2 years it became clear that we were gonna go for this quite ambitious project.
Hej elskede. Godmorgen. Jeg er lige kommet ud af hotellet. Jeg er lige tjekket ud. Jeg så for længe. Vi er kørt med taxi, og jeg er på vej ned på sådan en havn, hvor vi har lejet en båd og skal ud og sejle nu.
I don't think that we need to, the journey would be, like here, either this side or this side, I don't know. I guess it's this side, the boat goes on this side. Then we have some smaller points here, 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 and potentially this long one here. We do one here for sure, that's the last one, or the first one, depending. And then we take, we don't know, on this part we need to find a place. And then we need to find a place on this part. But this is lovely here. We didn't go out here.
You can't get out there. That might help us actually. It's always closed off, weirdly.
Yeah, but see, under the bridge, we could put a scaffold all the way up to the base of the bridge.
It's a really nice idea. Maybe it would help us it's closed off. We can get access and it's perfect.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
So here we are in a situation where I would like to test or to experiment or to try to challenge an existing space by amplifying some of the qualities that I think are worthwhile introducing to that space. And the platform or the space in which I go into is not neutral. It's not like an empty canvas for a painter. It is already charged with all kinds of meanings and intentionalities. It's important to maybe talk about to what extent do we feel that we have an impact on our world, on the surroundings? To what extent do we feel that it makes sense to vote or to participate or not to participate or to step in or step out and so on? To what extent do we feel a cause and effect or a causal sort of dimension to our life? Does it actually even matter that we have an opinion about something or that we are here in the first place? When I make something, which maybe is a work of art, I want this to be in the world. I want it to be kind of sincerely and honestly and responsibly in the world. I want it to have an impact somehow. And how does one do that?
Ricardo, do you have the plans? Should we do it now? Because we can do it before we eat, then go through the lima. So hang them up quickly, and then we do it right now. Let's see now. Why are they all higher than I said today? Did Arndt not like my height? Why is this one so big? Okay, you work on that one. Okay, you're right. It's much nicer without the one at the end. It's completely clear. It's actually super nice. Jan, can you make this one lower also? The idea is essentially that things are being taken care of, and I kind of come in and I try to look at the state of things, and then I get inspired and we change things, and then I work from that point. So it's very much like a laboratory where my participation is as important as the input of everyone. And the idea is really that we experiment a lot and we try out a lot of things that doesn't essentially turn out into something, and from there we hopefully see if we can establish and work on something which of course will end up being a project, a building, a space, a tunnel, a platform, or so das war jetzt nicht so viel Bewegung. Das ist einfach nicht gut genug. This is for a show in Japan in a museum in Kanazawa, and there's a round space in the center of the museum, a very, very big round space. And this piece is a tailor-made piece for that particular space. It will be totally dark, and there will only be the light that you see on the wall here. There is one entrance in this space, and the mechanism I have on the floor here has a sort of a panel in it which sits exactly in the door. So when you enter the space, you would step on the panel, and your movement into the space would create a small wave in the basin. What we need to finish now, just before we pack it down this weekend and send it off to Japan, is the momentum of the kind of, how hard do you have to press to create a kind of nice wave. And I think there's still a few details to be worked out on that. But otherwise, it's a thing that I'm very excited about. It's working out perfectly. When I work with whatever I work with, I very much think of the kind of foundations of how is what I work with being constituted? Who determines that it's real or not? And I would like to hand down that, or hand that determination to the spectator, which means that I need to include the spectator into the objecthood. Of course, this is about making a work of art, if you want to call it that. But essentially, it's really about evaluating from where and from what basis do people actually allow themselves to get involved with their surroundings. What does it mean to get involved? And what does it actually mean to see this spot from which we are talking or standing this very moment? And am I able to see it, or is it a construction, a blind spot? Is it something that I need to see myself from the outside of in order to understand?
See there, you can see where those people are jogging.
Oh yes.
You see, I think there might be some potential there. We'd have to check the structure.
A big project like the waterfall is a play with. I have a vision of why I want to do this. I say, okay, this is important to me. I think it's worthwhile pursuing. Then I start working on it, and then I realize further down the line, my God, it has other qualities that I didn't realize. Then I work with them, then it develops even further. And so it's not like, utopia. It's not like I have one goal and this is where it's gonna go.
I think of this more like almost like a painting, that you look at it and you see a picture and you go like, aha, waterfall.
Yeah.
So we are making an effort to move as close as possible to a picture where people go like they think, or they subconsciously think, or whatever we call it, that now they are seeing a waterfall. And we want to build a narrative on that.
I do not claim the full authorship of the project. I rely on the audience and the context and the quality of the situation to claim authorship. Should I set out a utopian vision and tell people what to bloody see in the waterfall, I would be limiting, I would be normative, I would be commodifying the project, I could say.
But there's something rather nice about the top, with the breakers on the top. Thanks. Which looks quite good now, the way the water crumbles up there.
Right.
This is amazing. I like the way there's big chunks of water, kind of bam, bam, bam. And that's very natural. I'm gonna try to do an experiment. And by doing this experiment, I guess I can, suggest or make a little example of how things could potentially be. Let me just do this. Orange paper. We have in our eyes roughly 3 color receptors. And if you stimulate the color receptors with one color, they will create the after image as we know it. And then your eyes will produce the complementary color. And the complementary color of orange is blue, or the complementary color of yellow is purple, and so on. So I'm gonna have to ask you now to look in the center of this circle and bear with me for a second. This takes roughly 6 to 8 seconds for your eyes to develop into or develop enough after image material. And after having looked at this circle for 8 seconds, and you can start looking now if you haven't started already, and please pay attention that you're looking in the actual center of the circle. Keep looking. So the moment I flip the paper, keep looking roughly at the same place, and I guess we have 5, 6, 7, 8, and keep looking, and I'm just going to flip it around. And if you roughly keep your eyes on the screen, you should see a bluish or turquoise or a kind of a round colored disc floating around. Do you see the point that we are in a sense having a dialogue right here and now?
The whole issue is obviously that reality I could suggest, and this doesn't only apply into art, I would say this goes for everything. Reality is really depending very much on the way you see things, and I would say this is it's a metaphor on one side, but on the other side it's also a proof that you, in fact, you are in a sense co-producing what you are seeing and making whatever sense there is, making some sense of it. I often talk about my work as a kind of making a machine, or like an artwork being some sort of machine that produces some sort of phenomena. And of course, it's only this phenomena and the relationship you have with the phenomena that's really interesting for me. I try to, make the machine accessible. I try to kind of, allow people to see how this phenomenon is done. It's really about inviting people in to co-produce the work with me. You hand over, to some extent, the responsibility for what they see to the people who's actually seeing. They construct it themselves by experiencing it, by experiencing the way it's constructed and the phenomena as one sort of closed unit. This is where I think the world becomes negotiable, right? Suddenly it's open and inclusive rather than being sort of closed and kind of exclusive.
This is our emergency phone, just for when we get stuck in the river.
It works.
Oh, okay.
Looks like the weather's okay on the glacier. We're gonna go into the glacier, into the base of the glacier, and change cars. I'm gonna be focusing on photographing, so I can't drive. We're gonna prepare the cars to go on the glacier, which means taking the air out of the wheels and so on. This is very exciting because I've never been down here. What these kind of journeys have in common, or these kind of tours have in common, is that I'm focusing on one particular phenomenon. I'm focusing on one topic. Typically, that topic is a spatial topic. It could be a horizon line. It can be an island on the ocean. It could be a waterfall, or like in this case, we just recently traveled around looking for holes in the glaciers, so-called moulins. And obviously each experiment or each journey has a different meaning somehow and is about different things. But at the end of the day, they all are my desire to somehow document a phenomena. And it's almost like making a little story about the nature of this phenomena, the diversity within the actual scope of the phenomena, and the kind of idea of compiling the views of the phenomena.
I need a lot of very small ones, just like kind of 10 centimeters, and I only need kind of 5 really big ones. And this is as big as they get, isn't it?
No, it gets bigger.
It's really scary, huh?
So my interest goes really in the way that I can participate in a dialogue. I see my work as a response to something that I sense out in the world. I use my studio to amplify my response. I see the way that I'm able to actually go out, see something, see a trajectory, I could say, and then come back with an answer to that, or with another question, or with another trajectory. I see that as an extremely interesting idea.
Listen to the sound. It's scary, huh?
It's a good question. It's a good question. What is it about? No, but I mean, obviously, one can claim it to be about certain things, and I just wonder whether it's really relevant for me to kind of outline exactly what it is about in that way, because it's always going to be, let's say, somewhat limiting to the project, But clearly, what is exciting about the holes is that they have, first of all, very unusual visual qualities to them, such as being holes in ice, in which one, if one falls into them, probably won't survive. So in that sense, it's like a projection hole. You project yourself into it, and there's a whole discussion there. There's another thing, the whole idea of filing and documenting and making an archive, the whole idea of, generating knowledge about phenomena, spatial phenomena, landscape, nature, and spatial qualities is obviously about also getting closer, or getting a closer relationship to space.
And the sun is coming out a little bit again. Oh my God, look at this. Hej, Zacharias. Ja, der er gletsjer over det hele her. Der er gletsjer over det hele. Altså, der kommer ikke noget ild op af vulkanen, nej. Det gør der ikke. Den er, jeg kan slet ikke se vulkanen herfra, men der er is over det hele. Altså, det er ikke sådan noget, man kan spise her. Nå, okay, skattermus. Ja, have en god dag, ikke? Then, of course, we have the speed of the turning, which just gives us the kind of the spatial quality of the spiral.
Mm-hmm. There's an axle coming out of it, like that. And on the inside, there's a unit that just sort of slides back and forth. And the back side, this is closed. There's a little hole here. But on the back, it's open. So the whole coil thing goes back up.
Can I touch it? Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So I think I don't know, maybe we can...
Can you make a bigger amplitude?
Yeah, I got that one.
Is it okay if I try to stop it?
Sure. Someone will. It's simple.
Wow, it's really steady.
Yeah, we're shaking the back plate here.
Incredible. No, that's excellent.
It took us a long time to find those.
Okay, great. When are we getting the first drawing? I'm really curious. I'm really bloody curious. We have worked with these harmonographic drawing machines where we are trying to analog, or more or less analog, turning a tone, turning them into a drawing. And at some point it might, again be a space. So it's like a translation machine.
It's not a lot of different projects. It's all one project at the end. And the language that I speak with one object is the same language that I speak with all the other ones. So it's hard to tell. No, there's nothing here. Optically, the center is working exactly like it should. And I don't think it's not necessary to do more.
No, I think it's nice, really nice like this.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I think one of the main sort of unique qualities about the kind of the language that art speaks is that it kind of doesn't take the world for granted as being truthful. It looks at the world as if the world is a model, or it simply takes it for granted that the world is a model, or it is a constructed world. Reality is constructed, and there is not a kind of an objective truth out there. And what happens is, if you successfully, starts a dialogue on that basis, that reality is, construction, what happens is suddenly reality also becomes relative. Suddenly it can change. Suddenly, if it's a construction, it's much more likely to be renegotiated. And if it's a kind of an objective truth, it's less likely to be renegotiated, because people might think that God has made it or something like that. When I talk about the reality or the world not being objective but being a personal sort of point of view, it's not so much about the personal point of view, but it's simply just to argue that the world can change, and art is one of the tools or one of the ways you can address this sort of the nature of this change.
So this is the basement down here. And let's have a look in the back here. As you can see here, we're testing out with different principles. And here we're obviously doing something wrong here, because these are not fitting together. So these are just tests. And this has been drawn on the computer upstairs. So now we then try to rebuild it here. So on the computer, this one is touching each other, and down here it's not. So I don't know if this mistake is down here or if it's up on the computer. And I found this shape on the homepage of the toy maker. Then I had Einar, who works here. I had him help me figuring out the geometry in this. And then we did this model, and it turns out that there are some pentagonal holes in here. The pentagonal holes we then started redrawing, and we then put it in the computer. And I don't know exactly if this will allow people to understand or see or evaluate a different type of space. But essentially these experiments sometimes leads one to think spatially about things in different ways. Just a little bit.
Yeah, to have a slope coming in
Yes.
here.
I mean, I wonder, it just somehow you start to read it as if this has been taken away. And it would be nice to take this surface down.
Take the middle line. Yeah, I can try it.
So these small spatial principles that I've been discussing with Einar, I've been working on now for almost 10 years with him, and obviously he has a distinct sensitivity about certain forms and almost crystalline principles. I think it has a great potential, and it's just a question of how one can utilize or how one can use it in a kind of a more how one can translate it into an actual spatial experiment.
I think today will be either sailing or it's sinking today. So it's an important day. Morning. Hello. I'm Olafur. Morning. Hello.
Low water today is at 246.
So you have about 10 feet here. 10 and a half feet.
Yeah, we can't. We have to have at least 12 feet of low water.
It just turns out that in front of Governor's Island, where I wanted to have my waterfall, there's not enough water depth. And there's a lot of rocks and gravel, and the whole erosion issue prevents us from putting a waterfall there. So I have to see. Now we're just going to go around a little bit and measure the depth and see if we can find a different side. What do we have here? 10 feet? We're at 10 feet right now.
We might actually, I wonder, but I think we might actually take outer side.
Look how shallow all that is, yeah.
Right now, I don't know exactly what to do, and I need to make a decision.
I was thinking maybe put it on Ellis Island. The thing is, our permitting process has gone so far down the path.
Yeah.
We're submitting the final thing. We're doing it Wednesday.
All right.
And if we don't get that,
we don't get it.
We don't get anything.
Yes.
Let that permit go ahead. Get that going.
Yes.
So we can keep going with those things. And then maybe if we've got to find a fifth site,
we'll see.
Okay, goodbye. I think it's not gonna bloody happen, it seems. I have a very bad feeling that the waterfalls might not come together after all. It looks like we are not gonna make, it looks like we're not gonna make it. The permitting things are not coming through. And the whole idea about getting that amount of money in this amount of time is not at all working out. So this is the danger with investing, you know, kind of emotions and expectations, and then it doesn't seem to work out. I feel really sorry for the people who's been putting so much effort into it, as it seems that the whole project's hanging in a very thin thread. And it's, I mean, now we will see on Friday, which is in 3 days, we will see whether there will be a coming together again. But right now it looks like it's definitely not happening. So I don't know what to say. See this sign, Hella, over there? Mm-hmm. It's where my father used to live. You know, I spent many years in Hella. I sold it. I sold it when we bought the house in Denmark. No, it had too many sad memories connected to it. I mean, essentially, I used it as a garage. No, and also it wasn't really too much use. I don't think that Iceland for me is really about longing, and I'm not in any particular search for my origin, as it is right here where I am now, I feel. I think, I mean, I think one should be careful always claiming that when a place is big and lonely and beautiful and fantastic like Iceland is, it's always about something existential. And if it is about something existential to me, why should I share it with you? We all the time deal with existential questions, but there is not really a point in making that, let's say, desire to deal with existential problems a part of your communication with other people, unless you want to exploit or fetishize or, kind of communicate yourself as a person in a not so interesting way. And this is why I always say this is not about me, this is about you. And I don't mean you behind the camera there, or you there, or the sound man there, but really about, whoever is gonna be wasting their time looking at this. What we have now is good news. A couple of or 10 days ago, it all seemed to be falling apart, and now it seems to be back on track. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting, and it seems we have a permitting possibility as well. So it's very good. It's very good. If I'm not wrong, I'm gonna go to New York next week, and the waterfalls are still scheduled for next summer. That is 10 months, or a little less than a year from now. So it's very good. This is a project which I worked on for more than a year now, and it's a project which has gone through a number of stages. But the point is essentially that we have a kind of a light ceiling, and then we try to fill up the space underneath it with smoke or some kind of haze. And the haze obviously takes the color of the light. So here we have then some red light and some green light, and right in between here somewhere, when we have enough smoke, there's going to be some, you could say, yellow light. I mean, the trick is, of course, when you come into a space like this and you see nothing but, you could say smoke, but you could also say colored light, then you start to move, and then you soon will find out, I hope, that the color of the smoke changes accordingly to your movement. I guess at some point you can navigate by knowing, oh, this is the blue area, this is the green area, and you start sort of making a map inside your head, and then you can walk around in this map. So it's a shift from one orientation principle to another, and I think this shifting is very interesting. I mean, this is just a model of orientation, and the other one is also a model, so the shift between two models, I think, is very nice here. And getting lost and, meeting somebody by chance. You could also call it the chance encounter, which, the kind of idea of not knowing exactly if you meet somebody or don't. And the idea of being lost obviously has to do with, finding yourself in a sense. But the chance encounter is the title of the show. I'm just wondering whether I should call this piece Your Chance Encounter. But maybe it's not so interesting to meet somebody else. Maybe it's more interesting, to use the meeting of somebody else to kind of investigate the meeting with yourself. Let's go and have some lunch outside. It's too symmetrical. That's what I want to say. Your idea of one side. But let me try to be more personal, which is maybe better. It's more convincing if I'm a little more personal. I think the way that I would like to see a work of mine perform breaks into, very different ideas, and occasionally one idea pop up, and that seemed to be for the time being, the more inspiring one, and the one I'm thinking about these days are the fact that a work of art can actually embrace different people having different experiences at the same time. I'm just puzzled by this, because if you think about it, where in society does this happen? And where in society is this also embraced as a good thing? If you're different, you are typically, in the world that I live in, not welcome. Art could actually not just show that this is not right and so on. Art can, participate in an investigation of that in a productive way. So suggesting that we can constitute a community or a group of people or a collective based on differences, being singular, plural, being both a group and able to kind of work as an individual.
No, I agree. Yes.
Er du okay, skat?
Ja.
Er du sulten?
Ikke så meget.
Er du sulten?
Ikke så meget, siger jeg.
Godt.
Turn it around a little bit. No, dreh das so, einfach so. Ich finde es nicht schlecht. I think it's great.
Looks a little bit cheesy.
That's good.
Yeah, no, but that's probably because of the colors.
Yeah.
Maybe the other foil won't make the same rainbow colors, and maybe it's more interesting, just the white light.
Does a normal foil without optic?
Yeah, but then all the lines are gone. But if we can get the optic without these, the colors. Let's do another one which is a little bit bigger, maybe 1 meter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just see if the foil won't stretch for that.
Hvad synes du om alle de her lamper her? Se. Nej, prøv at se der. Det har Anne-Sophie i kassen. Synes du ikke, det er sang?
Hvor var der sådan en her?
Ja, det er en spildåse.
Hvad skal vi bruge den her til?
Jamen, hvis man lige skal spille en melodi. Se. Ja.
Sometimes you are in a situation where the studio doesn't really amplify its own quality in the right way. It gets kind of caught up in its own structure maybe. And a workshop can be a way of revitalizing why we're doing what we're doing, or how we can do why we're doing better. And I think the studio as such embraces, or it needs to embrace, doubt, uncertainty, the fact that what we're working on might turn into nothing, the fact that what we're doing is about something which we don't know or we don't see yet. If we keep an eye on the balance between form and content, you tend to be able to solve very complex questions. Sometimes you get caught up in form and you just go on and on about this being not the right color. And then you ask yourself, in terms of content, what is this about? Where does it go? Who is going to engage with it and why? And suddenly you realize it should have this or that color. So a lot of the form, or mostly the form, is secondary to the content. And the studio needs to, let's say, be sensitive to the content and also in a sophisticated manner go out and research the content, which you then can bring back in, and then that produces the form.
So we finalized the opera in Oslo, and we have next week a quite incredible press launch, which is obviously something very important in New York for the waterfalls. And it is hard to believe, but this project seems to be happening. And every mail we get for them, and we get a lot, ends with saying, please remember, the project might get postponed and something, so don't say it to anyone. So I have promised them in New York not to tell it to anyone. So I tell you the same. Considering the drama it has been to get that project together, it is unbelievable that we seem to be going there on Monday. So this is quite something. It's quite, because when it's obviously in the press, it's the kind of likelihood that it actually will happen increases dramatically. Here we go. This morning was a nice morning because I got up and I took a shower, listening to Bossa Nova, and I realized that I suddenly had this feeling that this is actually going to happen. So we're on the way down to the harbor front to go public with the waterfall project now. I need to get my voice in there and make sure that the qualities and the values that I believe in is communicated throughout the project.
The one thing I would just be a little careful about, and I know we took it out of your statement, is a few times you've said, oh, it's very simple.
Right, simple is not a good word in America.
Well, it's just that I think you can say the idea is simple, but what I want to be careful of is, then why did we work for 2 years and spend $15 million?
Yes.
Because it just digs at Dan Tishman.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but what we want is to say something, it's very accessible and understandable.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, you don't want to say it's simple to make.
Yes.
Right, because it's obviously clearly not simple to make.
Let's go out over there.
Okay.
Just hang on. I found a penny in the taxi. Well, let me just, can you just film it? Just hang on a second. I just need him to film me getting out of the car. Oh, look. A lucky penny. This is America.
They really must be seen to be believed. The waterfalls are sure to make waves in many other areas of city life. And now it is a pleasure to introduce one of those artists, the great Olafur Eliasson.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here today. It's a very special day. One quality about this project very much is about a certain idea of inclusivity, a certain idea about this is not about, something elitist. It's really about something which is very generous in the way that it addresses what a city and what a space and what nature in city is about. In terms of the picture of the water that we grow up with, in this case the East River here outside, I found it particularly interesting to take that water that you refer to as a surface. You see it as a mirror of from here the Brooklyn or from there the Manhattan skyline. If you can take that mirror and give it a volume, give it a body, make it explicit, what happens when water goes up in the air? You suddenly can see the wind carrying the water away, you hear the way the water hits the ground. Suddenly it becomes much more engaging for many senses. It becomes something that you can relate to physically rather than a picture. Physically means that you might develop something we could call environmental sensitivity. The feeling of water being wet on your hand is different than thinking about being wet on your hand. The idea that you can engage with water on a by physical means is something that I find challenging. And I think there is a story in the idea of the waterfall, which is very valuable to come and to bring here to this setting here and see how it generates certain questions and generates, I think, a very inclusive and tolerable idea of what is this space in which we're living made of? What is the history and what is the now?
We could, if you don't mind me stepping out of the picture, we could consider the television or the screen or the film or the computer a lamp. So play with me on this little experiment. Turn off if you have any other lamps right next to the screen. And let me just also turn off this film. So I'm just going to use my black cardboard. Are you ready? Then let's turn off the light. And then I can turn it on again. And I can turn it off again. So try to have a look at how the space around you, not necessarily the screen. Don't focus on the screen, just look at the space around you and see how the television, in a sense, was a lamp. So let's just for a second now decide that this film is not a film. And that's the experiment, if you bear with me. It is a lamp. So I'm just going to step out, and then you're going to see a yellow fade in, an ambient light. So do bear with me, please. If you don't mind not looking at the screen, please look at the space around you, at the coffee cup in front of you. Here comes the yellow. Oops, a bit of my hands too. Here we go. And oops, I'm sorry. Hang on. Fade, 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 fade. Okay. Yellow. Oh, sorry. Red. Red lamp. The whole idea was to suggest that obviously, and that's the key issue, right? Obviously, the kind of responsibility for constituting what you're seeing is not mine, the cameras, but it's the viewer, right there. And I find that rather attractive because then it's not about me, and I will step out again now. It's about you. But let's just see. Then I think there's something. This I think is too chaotic. This I think is too chaotic, but it's a little bit better. I love this person down there. Mm-hmm. Who is that? This is too chaotic in the front. This is great, and what I like about this one is that there is a depth. And I don't see this one here.
That was the one you looked at first, I think.
They're all pretty good. This one.
We have it.
This is also not bad.
Den er højere.
Why are we printing it out in this shitty quality when we buy these expensive printers the whole time? I'm now halfway through the installation of the MoMA project, and it is going quite okay, I guess. I like the way that some pieces just end up looking different every time, and that means that they're really new every time. I had this discussion last night with some of the people from MoMA, whether we're showing 10 years old work or whether we're showing new work done 10 years ago. This is an interesting argument if you think about it. Obviously, I would say that everything is new because the experience or the moment you engage in it is now, or is here now, or it's whenever you engage in it. I think now we're here. So the challenge is to claim that the show is a new show and it's not a survey of old works. I think this is the entrance right here on the left. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, that's it. So these days are all pragmatic. It's only practical problems the whole day. And there's a very odd paradox between the pragmatism and the practical issues of doing a show like this, and the whole build-up of expectations and the kind of fact that this is now my big show in New York. And that somehow there's this big gap between all the expectations of the show and the fact that I'm just now worrying about not getting the right fixture for a certain bulb. And in a sense, I need to find a way of bridging that gap between reality and the sort of spectacular nature of what we're doing here. It's somewhat ugly if it's all about the wrong things.
Yeah, so then The New Yorker is writing a review of the show.
This is the New
Yorker. Yeah, this is the New Yorker.
Okay.
And this photographer is basically looking for...
Oh, he's the photographer?
Yeah. So
Okay.
he's really he wanted to just kind of hang around for a couple hours, see if there's a moment where he doesn't want to interrupt you, but where you're working with the team and he can get a shot of...
No, actually, I don't want that.
Okay.
So if we could just clear some intimacy in the first few hours I'm here, that would be nice.
Okay.
And if anything like this happens, please ask me up front so I won't have to encounter the stress of dealing with it inside of the show.
Okay, sorry about that. I had
Good.
discussed it with Petra and Anna, and I thought that they had communicated it to you.
Yeah, they might have.
Sorry.
They might have, but if they had, they would have known, or I would have told them. But that's okay.
Okay.
Do you need to take him through first, and then I'll wait?
He saw the show. I mean, the
Okay,
show. He saw
good.
the installation.
Okay, good.
All right.
Thanks. It's been a turbulent couple of days. After Berlin, I opened up the Oslo Opera, and that was intense and full of stress also. Just full of people expecting too much, too many places and so on. And I was just so happy to get on the plane with the family and getting over here. My God, it's such a relief to be here. And it's so wonderful to have seen the show. I'm very excited about the way it looks. Hello? Hello? Hi there, hi there. And do I have a photo shoot at 11? Is that with you? Or is that with you?
I don't know anything about the photo shoots, but
Okay.
Meg knows.
Yeah, I think there's something.
Okay, okay, great. Very good.
I don't know if
Bye.
it was with this guy.
Meg hasn't been around so much. I don't know.
I have
Meg was here.
in my calendar it says photo.
I think it's here. You can check with Meg though.
And who was it? The guy I just threw out?
It may have been. He was from the New Yorker. Let me call Meg and see.
There's just too much. But I had one at 11, and it wasn't 11. I'm sorry, I'm being ultra difficult. I know. Okay,
Hey, Meg. So
now I'm ready. Now I'm ready for the photo
Olafur
shoot.
is ready for the photo shoot now. Anyways, he now, he needed a moment to just look through things, and now he kind of knows his schedule. So
I have my nerves on my outside.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and it's not your fault altogether, so it's fine. And you actually were in my schedule.
So I'm told. Yeah.
But you were at 11, and it wasn't quite 11 yet.
now.
That's why I instantly asked for you when it was 11. Well, this is the wall eclipse. Hej, det er mig. Hej, skat. Ja, nu er jeg lidt mindre stresset. Ja. Det ser rigtig godt ud. Ja, det ser rigtig godt ud. Det er smadret sjovt at være her også. Kæft, hvor var det en lettelse at komme herhen. Men jamen, det er også, det er sådan dejligt let, og jeg fylder ikke for meget det hele, og det er ikke så, hvad skal man sige, det virker ikke som om, jeg sådan virkelig gerne vil vise folk alting, eller sådan, det var sådan lidt, jeg var bange for, det var sådan noget for meget, ikke? Så det smadrer godt, og de er virkelig kommet langt, så vi er ikke bagud mere. Kan du høre mig? Nu tabte jeg dig. Kan du høre mig? Kan du høre mig? Hallo, hallo?
Traditionally, a lot of people refer to space as a sort of container where you can put something inside. I would rather like to see space, or the city as New York, if you want, the public space, as a kind of multiple layer of stories, all the stories in New York so far. Adding the waterfall is just adding one more story to all these stories, becoming a part of the city. It's a sort of entanglement where these waterfalls and the city become one thing. And they develop and that space goes on. I've added, one more story to the history of that city.
Jeg synes altså, det er et vildt vandfald, det der. Prøv at se, det første vandfald, det er det der, ikke? Kan du se det? Så prøv at kigge. Der. Prøv at se trappen. Kan du se, der er en trappe inde i vandfaldet?
Ja, men jeg skal lige, så ved jeg ikke. Det er ud, og så nej, du behøver ikke holde.
Okay. So we just started on the first waterfall 2 weeks ago, and they already finished it, or 3 weeks really. And it's right over there. It's just came down today to see it without anybody else here.
Hi. Good morning. How exciting, huh?
Are you fresh and awake?
Yeah.
Look at that. Hey, Tom.
Good to see you. Congratulations.
Are you awake? Well,
yeah. Yeah, are you?
Yeah, I am pretty bloody nervous.
Are you nervous?
It's nice.
Huh?
Piece of cake.
It's nice that it's not windy, it's not rainy. So we have a month for the opening.
Yeah.
A month for the opening.
And we have, is everybody down here? Everybody from the team?
Ready to go?
Okay, you ready to roll?
We're ready to roll?
Should be kicking in any minute, any second.
Then we're going to do a test tonight. I'm quite exciting because it's the first test, and I'm very curious to see how it works.
It's winding up now.
Do we have music? Oh, please, Lord.
Okay, Mike Boat's gonna go up. Say again? Mike Boat is gonna go up top. Mike Boat, you up top yet? Just got you. What's the situation look like? Trench, 12 is dry. Alright, we're gonna crank up the pump speed. We need more power.
What?
We have a little leak. There's 3 inches of water in the top.
Okay.
In the trough, but there's a little leak in the connection, so they're trying to fix it.
Okay, okay. What do you say, Tom? Should we go and have a coffee?
Any second.
We'll have a sunrise together, Susan.
So you're a patient man, huh?
Well, it's just my outside.
He's nervous. He's a nervous one.
I don't think we're gonna see it today, actually. Hej, skat, det er mig. Nå, vi har stået hele natten. Vi kan ikke få det til at virke. Ja, det er simpelthen helt vildt, men altså, det er jo bare sådan nogle tekniske problemer. Ja, men jeg har faktisk ikke helt fundet ud af, hvorfor det ikke virker, men der er... What are they saying up there?
Mike, we still running the pump? Just shut down. They just cut off?
mean, we all wanted to do it when Olafur was here. We understand. That's what the test was, so we get it. Olafur understands.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. No, it's fine. It's fine. I don't feel threatened yet. Not yet. So no water today. What a drama. Let's get a car.
I have throughout my work tried to come up with this notion that I have throughout my work tried to, how should I say this? I've throughout my work, I better try to talk my way into it. Responsibility, I guess that means really being, in your time, right? So you are critical, and criticality can be many things, but how can one be a part of the times in which we're living in? How can one be critical in that responsible way, rather than being critical in a kind of way that you could have been 100 years ago or something like that? So responsibility, I think there is something right there which is about, for the time being, it seems to me that being responsible is more about introducing criticality by virtue of a coming together, rather than polarizing every argument into each other opposites. And of course this changed. Maybe a year ago or 1 year ago it was different, or in 1 year it will be different. But right now it seems to me that there is a kind of a critical potential in sort of suggested responsibility lays in the kind of the way that things comes together. And I guess one could say this is why I occasionally suggest that my work is mainstream, because I just find it more responsible to claim that there is a potential in, even though this is not necessarily the case, but there's a potential in claiming that we are together on the middle, even though we might actually disagree quite a bit. And I wonder whether my artworks, or whether the waterfalls at the end of the day will succeed reaching such great ideas. But the vision in the first place, when I made a choice to become an artist, it was to kind of look into that big, let's say, box of questions of this kind of nature.
And today, they're finally here. The New York City waterfalls. and from this site you can see all four of them. Thanks to world-renowned artist Olafur Eliasson.
Thank you, Malcolm. Of course, I think waterfalls are fantastic. It's an unbelievable natural phenomenon. But at the end of the day, what a waterfall does to people is that it shows a very generous idea of what space is. Water, as we know, falls. It takes time to fall, and that little bit of time tells us something about scale, the distance across to the Brooklyn, from Brooklyn back to Manhattan or down to Governor's Island. That scale means that you're suddenly in the space. You're not looking at it from the outside. You're suddenly in the space, and being included in a space is what a great city should do. It should be inclusive rather than exclusive.
Yeah.
Great. Good.
Very good. Excellent.
See you tonight?
Yes. Thank you.
See you tonight.
Fuck. Nej, men jeg er lige stået ud af toget der. Hvor er I gået hen nu? Hej. Hej. Hej, skat. Hej. Der er blomster til dig. Det er blomster. Nej, hvor er det varmt.
Jeg har lagt til dig. Jeg har lagt til dig her.
Hvor er Zacharias henne? Zacharias! Hej, skatter. Jeg er lige kommet, sgu. Hvor er det godt at se dig. Er det sådan, man gør? Jeg troede, du skulle holde sådan her. Og kuren ned anden. Jeg løfter op igen.